Welcome back in for another edition of the Garden Report, live from TD Garden, where the Celtics have just defeated the Pacers 109-100 in another impressive win as they make it 2 in a row. I am Josue Pavone. I'm joined once again by Jeremy Carve. I guess we're the good luck charms, right, Jeremy?
I mean, so.
Another win for the Celtics at home. They make it 2-0 so far in the 6-game homestand. And before we break down this game, I have to remind you again, if you haven't already, make sure you download the SeatGeek app. All you have to do is enter the promo code Garden Report, and that's going to give you a $20 rebate off your first purchase. Make sure you remember that. Garden Report, all in one word, to get yourself a $20 rebate. So let's break down this game, Jeremy. And the first thing I want to mention about this game, the biggest takeaway from this game is who was the player of the game, Jeremy? Because you know what? I'm going to ask you. I want to hear your answer, and then I could name about 3 more players that could have easily won that honor because it seemed like it was a group effort. It seemed like every single Celtics player, that was a 9-man rotation. I feel like every single person did their part, especially in that second half where the Celtics were able to score 39 points in the third quarter and just cruise to a victory in the fourth as they were able to put away the Pacers in that second half.
I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's really hard to name a player of the game. My personal choice would be Al Horford. I mean, this is the second game in a row where he's threatening the triple-double. I mean, he got it. He's only had one in his career, but I kind of believe that he's gonna put one together before the regular season is done.
I mean,
so
he's been flirting with one like 8 times this year. You know, if he just had like 2 more rebounds in one game or 3 more assists in another, he'd be up to like 5 triple-doubles this season.
Mm-hmm. He'd be threatening Westbrook.
He'd be threatening Westbrook. Not quite, but you know what? I think he'd be in the running. He'd be right there. All right, well, you're going to go with Al Horford. I'm going to pick Jay Crowder. He finished with a game high. He was a plus 16 and the plus-minus stat. He was doing a little bit of everything. He wasn't just scoring threes. He was also going in, getting easy layups. He was becoming a playmaker at one point in that second half, finding guys down low, bounce passes. I love the ball movement from the Celtics, especially in the third quarter.
Amazing passing in that third quarter. I mean, there was a 2-minute stretch where pretty much every single Celtics possession, you were getting an ooh or an ah from the crowd because there was some amazing pass. Whether it be a touch pass from IT behind his head to just another one from Kelly. I mean, everyone was making crisp, perfect passes. And I mean, I think a lot of that came out of the turnovers. They had a horrible first half in turnovers, 14, which is more than their season average for a full game. And I mean, the players in the locker room are saying Brad was on them. We got a little mad Brad in the locker room at halftime.
A little mad Brad this time,
mad Brad.
Well, certainly
it
worked because in that third quarter they came out with that stretch, and it felt like the Pacers were only, put it this way, if Paul George wasn't on this team, this would have been a blowout. Paul George combined for 28 points in the first 3 quarters, so he certainly kept them in it. But it was just so little that they could do in that fourth quarter. The Celtics would really buckle down defensively. They did, just like on Monday, they managed to give away the lead a bit. They pulled to within 6 points, but then the defense stepped up in those last 3-4 minutes and took care of business.
Absolutely. I mean, personally, I think it's a little bit of a worrying trend where they keep getting these double-digit leads in the third quarter, pushing at least halfway through the fourth, and then allowing the teams to get back in it, basket by basket, cutting it. I think tonight's closest was 6 points in the fourth.
6 points, yep.
I mean, against a better team, if this wasn't Indiana, if this was a Cleveland or a Toronto or, hell, even a Washington, I think there was serious worry that the Celtics might have dropped this game.
Right, but what I was most impressed about was how the Pacers had the size for their advantage, but the Celtics just certainly just stepped up with the toughness. You know, the toughness just sort of took over at the end of the day, and it felt like the Celtics were not only pushing their backcourt to take shots and to stop them at the rim, but they were also, you know, getting physical down low. And it's the same thing we saw on Monday. So I think that has a lot to do with what Brad Stevens was talking about in terms of getting these guys to rebound and making sure that everyone is committed to the glass.
Absolutely. And tonight they lost the rebounding battle overall, but
but not by much.
Not by much. Well, no, not by much. But they won the offensive rebound,
right?
And that was huge. They were getting putbacks a lot in the first half, and that really kept them in the game, gave them that 4-point lead at half, and it was huge. Rebounding is going to be key to this stretch run.
You know what else is going to be key? Depth. Jeremy, talk to me a little bit about what Tyler Zeller did tonight, because to me, I feel like what's so great about this team is that anyone can step up on any given night. You saw Terry Rozier, Jonas Jerebko, 2 guys that got DMPs, and in comes Tyler Zeller to step in and do what he did on both ends of the floor. I always loved what Tyler Zeller can do offensively because he has such great hands. He does a really good job of finishing strong down low, can hit you with those little jump shots that from 7 feet from the basket. But on the defensive end, he was really tough for the Indiana Pacers. He was setting screens, and he was really taking it to someone like Al Jefferson, who you would think would oversize him down low, but that certainly wasn't the case.
No, not at all. I mean, he played 10 minutes and 15 seconds, and they were about as impactful 10 and a quarter minutes that you could really have in a game. I mean, you're absolutely right. He affected the game on both ends of the court, and he had a phenomenal throwdown dunk, keeping his balance through the lane in that second quarter.
I think that was the loudest the Garden got tonight. Right?
I think it might have been.
It was. All right. One more thing before we wrap things up here, Jeremy. I have to ask you because you know what? You brought this up on Monday about the Celtics potentially taking the first seed, and I pretty much laughed it off as in like, wait a minute, pump the brakes. You know what I mean? Let's do it. Let's take it step by step here. But all of a sudden, I mean, you see the Celtics in this sort of rhythm. You see they're still only 2 games behind Cleveland for first place. Cleveland's on the road right now. They were losing the last time I checked as we're recording this, and as the lights go out before they kick us out, I saw that the Denver Nuggets were beating the Cavaliers.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to win, but win or lose, the Celtics are certainly in great position to certainly challenge them. You know, these two are going to go at it in 2 weeks, right behind us, so certainly Celtics have the home court in their favor. They have the 6-game homestand in their favor. What are the chances that they grab that first seed, and how important do you think it is?
I mean, if I had to put a number on it, I'd say like a 33-ish% chance.
Right.
Like, I think that with this road trip by Cleveland, it's going to give the Celtics a real opportunity if they can close out this homestand with a few more wins. But, I mean, first or second seed, they're going to have home court in the first and second rounds, and that's going to be huge. They play far better at home than on the road. And in the playoffs the last couple of years, the road games have really been the Celtics' biggest struggle.
Right. Well, you know what? That's my mentality going into it. I mean, whether it's the 1 or 2, my biggest concern is who's going to be waiting for them at the 7th or 8th. You know, there's teams like Miami. There's a team like Milwaukee. You know, that could be a tough matchup for the Celtics. The Detroit Pistons, I think the Celtics would be more, they'd be more the favorite in that matchup in particular. I think they match up well against the Pistons, especially if Caldwell Pope isn't on, which I don't think he can sustain that sort of production throughout a 7-game series. So I'm really, it's all about what happens between the 7th and the 8th seed, because it's certainly a big battle going on between those teams, between 3 or 4 teams that could grab that. My hope was that it would be the Chicago Bulls. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I really wanted to see the Celtics face the Bulls because I thought that would be their easiest matchup, but that's not going to be the case.
It'd be fun to see Rondo.
It would be fun to see Rondo
on the bench.
On the bench. Oh, you're one of those anti-Rondo guys?
No, I mean, I grew up.
Either way, he comes off the bench, right?
Yeah. I mean, I like Rondo. He's a good player, but his body's kind of started to break down, and he hasn't really adjusted his game, and that's death for an NBA player.
Well, unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. They're not going to face either one of those
Probably
teams.
not going to make the playoffs.
But one thing you have to remember, though, is that if the Celtics do grab the 1 seed, that's going to give them one heck of a boost of confidence going into the playoffs. I mean, a lot of these guys have never even seen the second round, minus Al Horford. For them to go in as a number 1 seed and knock off the champs for the regular season title, so to speak, I think that's going to be huge for them to go into playoffs thinking that they can pretty much beat anyone since they're the number 1 seed in the East.
I completely agree. They can play with anyone. They've proved it. They've beaten Cleveland. They've beaten Golden State,
Washington, you name it, all the top teams.
I mean, they've struggled against like your San Antonios and your Houstons,
right,
and even OKC, but they're at least competitive in all these games.
And they've proven that they can beat any single team in the Eastern Conference.
No doubt about it. And I think that'll do us from the Garden. But before we go, I want to remind you that it's March Madness time, so you should go to MyBookie to bet on these games.
And it doesn't matter if your bracket is busted, because trust me, a lot of people's are, but you can still bet.
Mine's pretty busted, but it doesn't matter. I'll be on MyBookie. Go to mybookie.ag and enter promo code GARDEN for a 50% bonus on your first deposit. That means if you deposit $100, you'll have $150 to play with.
Absolutely. So make sure you do that. Deal. That's not a bad deal at all.
Make sure you go to mybookie.ag to take advantage of it.
And it doesn't matter about your bracket. You can do it right now. You can do it next week. Just make sure you do it before the end of March Madness. And with that, we're going to conclude this episode of the Garden Report, guys. Make sure you check out the CLNS Radio YouTube page where you can see what happened in post-game, what players had to say about this game as the Celtics make it 2 in a row for this 6-game homestand. And we'll see if they can make it 3 on Friday when they take on the Phoenix Suns right here at TD Garden. We'll see you then. For Josue Pavone, for Jeremy Karpf, that's going to do it live from TD Garden. Have a good night.